Thanks for tuning in this week to Up in the Air. I'm Hunter Williams.
And I'm Lehecka. We definitely have some interesting stories this week. One about Vail and the ski resorts out there.
You know what, Casey? I personally like to ski. There's just one problem.
Right.
I'm not very good.
Yeah, Hunter, in that case, the bunny slopes might be the best choice for you.
I see how it is. So you're an Olympic skier. Is that what I can take away from this?
I'm an avid skier myself. I do tend to go to Tussey around here, where I have gotten stuck on the lift a few times. But, man, I would love to travel out to Vail and see all they have to offer out there.
You know what? I think we should plan an Up in the Air team member trip out to Vail. What do you think about that?
That sounds like a great idea to me. I don't see why not.
We should do it. But we digress. Let's go ahead and get into all the latest weather news and climate enterprise news. Here's Update in the Air.
According to AccuWeather, spring 2016 might rank in the top 10 warmest years on record for Canada as a whole. El Niño can affect central and eastern Pacific water temperatures, and for Canada this usually means a warmer spring. This trend seems to be the case for Canada as a whole, except for areas from northern Quebec to Labrador. A persistent high-pressure system will keep much of Canada drier than normal, as well as a lack of snow cover across the southwestern prairie. From British Columbia to Alberta, ski conditions will still be favorable this spring, with a deep snowpack remaining on the ground. The drier conditions will lead to some warmth early in the season, but there will still be plenty of cold nights through the season with potential for an overnight freeze.
After record-breaking temperatures last week across the central part of the United States, wildfires burned nearly 40,000 acres of the state of Oklahoma. February record-high temperatures were broken in multiple cities across the area, including Dodge City, Kansas, which reached 88 degrees on February 18th, breaking the previous record high for February by 2 degrees. On top of the heat, windy conditions plagued the area, with wind gust observations of close to 60 miles per hour in Colorado. The gusty winds and warm temperatures combine to create dangerous conditions in which wildfires are able to thrive and spread.
Royal Caribbean cruise ships have made a devastating mistake on Monday, February 9th, as they sailed into a storm southward from New York that was heavily advised against. The 168,666-ton vessel sailed into the path of a weather system that had winds recorded up to 100 miles per hour and waves higher than 20 to 30 feet, according to Ryan Mao of Weather Bell. Mao also stated that the risk was easily avoidable as the storm was well forecasted by private and public forecasters. Royal Caribbean responds that the storm was unexpectedly severe. Hurricane-force winds and giant waves lashed Anthem for hours during the storm, sending furniture tumbling, smashing glass, and collapsing part of the ceiling in a public corridor. While just 4 passengers were injured, according to the line, many reported being terrified. Royal Caribbean on Monday canceled the remainder of the sailing, and the vessel headed back to its home base in the New York area. Royal Caribbean's decision to sail toward the storm could open it to liability from passengers, according to a maritime lawyer who often is involved in litigation involving cruise lines.
Believe it or not, the muscle behind American weather forecasting models lies in an office building. In this unsuspecting location, one of the world's most powerful supercomputers analyzes billions of pieces of data that will ultimately be used by meteorologists across the country to come up with a forecast. Vast amounts of information comprise the billions of pieces of data used by the computer, including information from weather satellites, weather balloons, airplanes, buoys, and surface stations from around the world. The supercomputer is kept in a room where the temperature remains between 69 and 72 degrees with a relative humidity of 30 to 50%. In these precise conditions, the powerful machine is capable of processing 3 quadrillion calculations per second.
Sea levels rose faster last century than during any time since Rome was founded around 2,800 years ago. Reconstructing past rises and falls in global sea level, researchers estimate that more than half of the 13.8 centimeters of sea level rise recorded in the 1900s resulted from global warming effects, such as glacial melt. The researchers analyzed measurements of ancient sea levels collected from 24 locations around the world, from New Zealand to New Jersey. They found that sea levels rose by about 1.1 millimeters per year from the 1st through the 8th centuries and fell around 0.2 millimeters per year during the 11th through 14th centuries. Sea levels rose abruptly around the start of the Industrial Revolution, with about 1.4 millimeters of sea level rise per year in the 20th century. Simulating sea level in the absence of global warming, the researchers estimate that about that the 20th century rise would have been at most 0.7 millimeters annually. Rising sea levels worsen coastal flooding and threaten island nations.
It's been a successful ski season for many resorts out west, with several destinations posting record visitors for early February. Whistler Blackcomb, a ski resort in British Columbia, has already recorded over 1 million visitors so far for the season. Whistler Blackcomb has also tallied over 27 feet of snow. Back in the United States, the popular Vail Ski Resort is now over 20 feet of snow for the season, a refreshing figure for the resort that was plagued by poor skiing conditions last season. As of January, Vail is at 151% of their normal snowfall, a figure that Vail corporate spokesmen are attributing, at least in part, to the current El Nino.
Thanks for tuning back in. It's now that time of the show where we have a special feature on the Weather Enterprise.
That's right. It turns out the Weather Enterprise as we know it is comprised of 3 different sectors, and these sectors work together to give us the weather information that we use on a daily basis.
That's right. The Enterprise is comprised of 3 different sectors: the public, private, and educational sector. And this feature is going to detail how they all work together.
Over the years, communicating information about the weather has become so much more than people in offices or a meteorologist forecasting on TV.
An interdependent relationship has been established between government, industry, and academia that provides weather and climate information and services in the United States.
Here's an inside look at the way weather is broken down and the inner workings of each sector.
Weather and climate directly affect the U.S. economy and the health and safety of its citizens. It is important to have the best weather and climate information the nation can afford due to the great influence of weather and climate on society.
$20 billion per year is spent on weather-related damages, and hundreds of millions of dollars are saved each year by taking action based on improved forecasts, warnings, and other weather services.
In the United States, the Weather and Climate Enterprise has evolved since its inception in the 1800s to include 3 sectors, each of which plays a unique and vital role. They are the National Weather Service, academia, and the private sector.
The National Weather Service is responsible for protecting life and property and enhancing the national economy. It maintains an infrastructure of observing, communications, data processing, and prediction systems. In addition, it conducts research on which the public, such as the federal, state, and local government agencies, private, and academic sectors rely, as well as negotiating data exchange agreements with other countries.
Academia is responsible for advancing the science and educating future generations of meteorologists. The private sector, such as weather companies, meteorologists working for private companies or as private consultants, and broadcast meteorologists, is responsible for creating products and services. These are tailored to the needs of their company or clients and for working with the NWS to communicate forecasts and warnings that may affect public safety.
However, there is friction between the public, private, and academic sectors due to overlapping roles. These include data collection, modeling and analysis, product development, and information dissemination.
Although there still is some stress and tension, it's not as much of a problem as it was, say, back in the 1990s.
Also, the sectors have different philosophies of sharing data and models with the other sectors and the general public. In addition, all members do not share the same expectations and understanding of the proper roles and responsibilities of the 3 sectors.
There's a human tendency to resist change, and as the Weather and Climate Enterprise has evolved, dealing with change has created additional stress.
The National Research Council released the Fair Weather Report November 2002 on the enterprise collaboration. It was compiled with a total of 11 recommendations, with the first 3 being the most critical.
The first recommendation was that the NWS should replace its 1991 public-private partnership policy with a policy that doesn't rigidly define the roles of the NWS and the private sector. The second recommendation was that the NWS should establish an independent advisory committee to provide ongoing advice to its on weather and climate matters. The committee is composed of users of weather and climate data and representatives of the public, private, and academic sectors. The third and last recommendation was that the NWS and relevant academic, state, and private organizations should seek a neutral host, such as the American Meteorological Society, to provide a periodic venue for the weather enterprise as a whole to discuss issues related to the public-private partnership.
The most important result of the Fair Weather Report to date has been the creation of a much more open communications process between the three segments.
For Up in the Air, I'm Veronica Dolan.
And I'm Christina Persch.
Thanks for tuning back in. It's that time of the show. We have Nathan Flinchbaugh standing by at the climate wall with a look at your 8 to 14 day climate outlook. Nathan.
Thanks, Hunter. And before I get into the climate outlook, I just want to say I overheard you and Casey at the desk talking about a trip to Vail. And I just want to put it out there. I have a friend who lives out there who can hook us up with a place to stay.
You know, I think we just made reservations.
That sounds like a plan to me. Nathan and I can stay on the double black diamonds while Hunter stays on the bunny slopes.
I don't know about that. I'm not a big fan of getting stuck on ski lifts, but let's change gears here and talk about climate like we should be. Here's our climate info for February 25th. We're now almost through the month of February, and our high temperature has gotten to 40 degrees. We're out of the 30s now as far as averages are concerned. Our average low is 23, and our mean coming in at 32. Typically during the month of February, we see about 2.5 inches of precipitation, 11 inches of which come in the form of snow and or ice. You'll notice also on our current snow depth that over the past week with a lot of warm air, especially over the eastern United States, we've melted down our snow quite a bit. Only 17% of the entire nation is covered, and most of it is concentrated across the far northern tier of the United States and the higher elevations of the west. That's basically about it. And taking a look closer to home, you'll see that the snowpack that we had over Pennsylvania has receded well to our north. Just a few spots still with some snow on the ground, but still some pretty deep snow across northern New York and portions of New England. But pretty much all of the mid-Atlantic is bare, which is very different than what we saw just a few weeks ago, thanks in large part, like I said, to the above average temperatures we saw this past weekend. Moving forward, taking a look at the first week of March, our upper air pattern seems to be shifting towards colder temperatures again, so even though it may feel like spring out there now, that doesn't mean that we're done with winter. I think we'll see another shot of cold air come in here at the beginning of the month as a trough digs down through the Great Lakes, and it'll get warm out west as a pretty big ridge will form over the western United States. So if we wrap that up into a forecast, this is for March 1st through March 7th. Below normal temperatures concentrated around the Great Lakes, but other than that, it's going to be above normal pretty much everywhere west of the Mississippi River, including well above normal for cities like Denver, Phoenix, and LA. And taking a look at the precip, again from March 1st to March 7th, will be above normal in New England, and will be above normal down in Texas and surrounding states. It'll be dry for portions of Florida, and exceptionally dry across the northern plains and western Great Lakes, stretching westward down through the Rocky Mountains and into the southwest, and also into California, which is battling a drought, as I'll show you here on the drought monitor. So that's not very good news. Severe drought continuing across southern and central California, stretching into Nevada. Rest of the country isn't doing too bad right now, but unfortunately, if we could just get this drought off there, that would be great, but it doesn't look like that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks for the folks in California. That's all I have here at the Climate Wall. Let's go back to the desk now to Casey and Hunter.
Thank you for that, Nathan. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's episode, but of course, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, I'm Hunter Williams.
And I'm Casey Lehecka. We'll see you next week up in the air.